With the one-year anniversary of Russia's invasion approaching this week and no end to the fighting in sight, what does "for as long as it takes" look like? Joining me now to discuss this and more is Congressman Pat Fallon. He serves on the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability, as well as on the House Armed Services Committee. He represents the 4th Congressional District of Texas. Congressman Fallon, welcome back to the program.
Tony, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
First, let me get your reaction to the president's surprise visit to Ukraine.
Well, yeah, it was a surprise. Tony, I think it was unfortunately, to kind of a political gesture to help Biden in the polls because he's been sinking and he's been underwater for the last 2 years. Fact of the matter is he's never led in Ukraine and on the Russian invasion. What he has done is really just followed what Capitol Hill has opted to do. And with Joe Biden, listen, to do nothing, I think, is an extreme position. But also to give the Ukrainian government a blank check is an extreme position. And that's what Joe Biden and the Democrats have done.
So the president announced another $500 million for Ukrainian aid. Are you concerned that we're not having the accountability we need over this money?
I really am. And it is tricky in so much, to be fair, as you want to account for the weapons. You don't want to have something that the Russians can hack and know exactly where they are and then destroy them. But nonetheless, there are a myriad of different ways you can track the weapons and make sure they're getting where they are supposed to be. There's no concrete evidence right now that any major stocks of weapons hasn't gotten to where they needed to be. But here's the bottom line. It costs about $1.5 billion a month to keep the Ukrainians in the fight. They've been fighting for a year. So our aid should have been about $20 billion. So riddle me this. Why has it been $110 billion? I don't know those answers because we've written, as the Republicans in the House have written 10 different letters to the Biden administration about the Ukrainian assistance, and they have ignored each one.
I want to bring in the conversation from the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, where he had an interface with his Chinese counterpart, basically saying that if China gets directly involved with Ukraine providing material there could be serious consequences. Does China really think that America will stand behind those words?
Tony, that's a great point. I think the Chinese would have heeded those words if Donald Trump spoke them, because he actually backed his words up with action. No president in recent history has stood up to China like Donald Trump did. That's just a fact. I hope his distractors could even acknowledge that. And this is Joe Biden. He said in the State of the Union address that he was going to act boldly when it comes to China. And yet, Tony, every time he's met with Xi, he's refused to bring up their increasing aggression towards Taiwan. He hasn't talked to him at all about their ever aggressive surveillance. And then to not talk about fentanyl is an absolute dereliction of duty, in so much as 80,000 Americans lost their lives to fentanyl overdoses last year alone. That's asymmetrical warfare being waged by our greatest geopolitical competitor, and the president won't even bring it up at a summit.
Of course, not to mention the horrific human rights record that China has in terms of its persecution of minorities there, religious folks as well. So what could the Biden administration do? I mean, again, Antony Blinken warning that there would be serious consequences and implications if they got involved. I mean, what have you heard that they're prepared to do?
Right. It's just, I think right now, it's just a threat, and it's an empty one at that. What we need to realize, what Joe Biden needs to realize, is the Chinese need us way more than we need them. We are a trading partner, one of our largest, and it is a global economy. But just like so many companies have done, beginning to divest out of China, anything that's really critical to our national security and national defense, we cannot rely on them. It sounds obvious, and yet he hasn't taken action and strong actions to ensure that that is actually the case moving forward. We have to prepare for a conflict with China, hoping that by preparing correctly and with the right deterrence, we never have that conflict. That's
right.
Ultimately the goal. And as President Reagan proved, you can have peace, but you need to do it through strength.
Well, and it's not only a military solution, as you talked about, our supply chain being dependent upon China. We need to move some of that manufacturing back to the United States, or at least within this hemisphere. I think we can, if we're looking for cheaper labor, You can certainly go to Central and South America where we could find some reliable trading partners down there. So many things that the Biden administration could be doing to remove us from this dependency upon cheap China products. But there's a related issue here. It goes to what the House Oversight and Accountability Committee did on Friday. You were a part of that. You're part of the leadership there. You sent a letter to the Biden administration, several of the agencies requesting information regarding the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan. I think this is important from a standpoint of if China or anyone else is going to take us seriously, we've got to address what I think was an embarrassment for our military and for our country, the way we withdrew from Afghanistan.
Well, I really am surprised that the Oversight Committee under the Democrats didn't have a hearing on this, because ultimately, at the end of the day, every member of Congress should not do the Republican thing or the Democratic thing, but the American thing. And clearly the American thing here is to never have a debacle like that again unfold. So why did it happen and how? In the military, when I was in the military, Tony, we did after actions reports. So that's all we want is an after action report as to what went wrong. Now, a couple of things. You don't withdraw from Afghanistan where there's seasonal fighting. You don't withdraw in the middle of the fighting season. You had an embryonic regime and government there that you wanted to see succeed and defeat the Taliban. So you don't leave in August when they're in the middle of the fighting season. You leave in January. So he didn't do that. There were also conditions that need to be met that weren't being met, and it was kind of a death by 1,000 paper cuts. And then lastly, you do not evacuate the military first. You evacuate the military last. Military leadership told the president that they could not keep Kabul airport and the embassy secure with 600 troops. They needed at least 2,500. He went to 600 anyway because the State Department recommended that to him. So where are the high-level executives in government that are accountable? There was no one fired for this, one of the greatest disasters in American military history.
Now, to be fair, I think I understand that Republicans in Congress have requested about 10 times information from the Biden administration on this, and to date, nothing has come. Now that the Republicans have control of these committees, do you think that they're going to comply and they're going to provide this information?
Well, we have the power of the subpoena now. So we're supposed to be co-equal branches of government. Tony, the White House, the executive branch, granted is one person, but with the commander in chief, but he is supposed to answer to Congress and vice versa. It doesn't happen that way at all. They've just been ignoring us. But now we have divided government and the power of subpoena, and we have control of the committees. So hopefully they'll be responsive. If not, we're going to have to go to the judicial branch and compel them to comply.
We're up against a break, but I got to play this clip and get a really quick response for you. Clip number 8, please.
Does the White House plan to cooperate in this investigation? How does it feel about it?
So I'll say this, we have been providing Congress with information on Afghanistan and the operation for this past year, so don't have anything to add there.
15 seconds. They provided the information?
No, they have not. That's just, she is the spin master. And no, that's not true.
You know what? I knew that was going to be the answer. Congressman Pat Fallon, thanks so much for joining us. Always great to see you.
Thanks, Tony. God bless. Take care.
All right. Have a great day.